controversy surrounding the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation's role in setting up what many are calling gladiator-style fights between rival gang members in lockup has taken a new twist, Hawk Watchers. After having long denied the practice, it now appears California prison officials are finally admitting to purposefully putting rival gang members in close quarters on prison grounds, but that it was all done under the guise of peacemaking. The Associated Press reports that prison officials have halted an effort aimed at forcing warring prison gangs to get along with each other after the inmates wound up brawling and even rioting when placed together in prison recreational yards. The effort started a year ago with officials gradually allowing prisoners from different gangs into exercise yards to try and get them to make peace. But was peacemaking really on the minds of these prison officials? Kim Wilson of the Beyond Prisons podcast joins us now to discuss this latest development.
Kim, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure having you on because of your insight into these matters. And I want to say, let's get this part out of the way real quick. With all of the research and all the interviews and everyone you've talked to, do you believe these latest claims by the Cdcr that this was all done out of an effort to try to make peace between rival gangs in prisons? Does that hold water to you?
No, it does not. I think that it's, woefully misguided, if I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here, and I'm really not, to say that this was an effort at peacemaking. If they truly wanted to focus on peacemaking, they would have taken seriously and would be taking seriously the demands of prisoners who've been calling for, an end to these, fights and to this forced programming, but also to the efforts of the women on the outside, family members and other organizers who have been supporting and trying to raise awareness around this issue. So no, I don't believe at all that this was, an effort at peacemaking.
Kim, what's the significance of prison officials now actually admitting to the press that this was indeed an official program of putting rival gangs together in the yard? What's the significance of them actually admitting it now?
Well, I think in a small way, it validates a lot of the work that organizers on the outside as well as prisoners, have been doing and what they have been saying for a very long time now, that this is a policy of Cdcr. So I think it does that. But I think also it sheds light on the fact that Cdcr's real policy is not about safety and security of prisoners in the community, but it's really a policy that's focused on torture and dehumanization. But in addition to that, I would also add that it raises a question here in terms of what happens to the people that have already been maimed by these fights, and in some cases there have been people that have been killed that have taken part in these fights, but also what happens to the people that have received extra time on their sentences? Where is the accountability for those folks? And that's not something that Cdcr has addressed at all.
I can't imagine they would, because, that'd be taking responsibility for something. We can't do that. These are just bad people.
Yeah, right.
Blah, 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 as the story always goes. With this, it's one of those things where it's like, I know how naive and idiotic government can be sometimes in their decision making, but I also know that they can be very nefarious in their decision making. And I think a lot of people at home, when they see this case and then they hear this, this admission or whatever, the cover, whatever you want to call it, was this truly a case of kind of a naivete on the nature of the inmates they're housing? Like, oh, we can put them in this yard and maybe they'll get along and that kind of thing, and that's why this plan, which I'm leaning more towards this side, was there something much more nefarious going on behind this program? What was the purpose of all of this in the first place?
I think that's a huge question. To answer the first part in terms of, is this naivete regarding the quote-unquote nature of prisoners, I think that, that language right there simply, it implies that, people that are in prison deserve to be treated poorly, deserve torture, deserve to be dehumanized.